there. Thank you so much for joining us. You are there watching or listening to The Climb. The Climb is brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. The Digital Mastermind is a group of agency owners, marketers, technologists that get together to solve all the problems within our industry. So if you think that you are someone that fits that bill, go ahead and shoot me an email, Jon, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. And today we have a special guest. We have Inbar Yagur. I believe I said her name right. She was a fantastic guest. We had a lot of fun to talk about. She just a super fun conversation, in my opinion. But before we get into that, I want to bring Dave out here and talk about some of the topics that we addressed in that conversation.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good, bud. Good to see you. Like the shirt.
Thank you.
So with Inbar, one of the topics that we talked about there was being a mom in Martech, and that is something you and I don't really think we can relate to too much, but there's a lot of great information. Granted, being a parent in that space during COVID is important. I think the other, though, is the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
Right? So let's define the Great Resignation. Like, what do you think that is?
Yeah, I thought it was related to, vax hesitancy, but it turns out it's just basically work hesitancy in the changing model, or the company's asking people to come back, and people are going like, you know what? I already proved that I can do this for a year and a half when you at home, and now you don't trust me? And then people are like, no.
So I think too, granted, and I think there's like multiple facets to it, right? So there's that, but I also think it's just people reflecting on what it is that they're doing and then resigning or switching jobs on account of that. Like, I just can't take this shit anymore. I don't want to do it.
Right. I mean, look, I remember early on in this, I told you how much time I saved by working at home, and you're like, why? And I'm like, well, you just get to do things in the middle of your day, like that you don't have to do immediately when you get home. And so it does give you a lot of time back, the commute time, which, you and I are very similar. I have a 7-minute commute, and I don't even have to get on a highway.
Yeah.
So that doesn't say, but a lot of people that I know, that you're getting an hour back a day. If you have just a manageable 30-minute commute each way, that's an hour a day you're spending in your car, not with your family. And then that year and a half when you didn't have to do that, it's like a gift of family time. So yeah, I could see people going like, whoa, no, I'm not going back to the office. And they're looking for remote jobs. So I wonder if resignation is the right word. I mean, it's like the great migration to a digital.
But I think they have a little bit of fun with it, right? Because you don't migrate necessarily from one job as much as you resign from one job and go to the other.
Yeah.
But Inbar, which she gets into, is like her relationship with her kids and just life during COVID that made it reflect. And granted, I nothing really changed for me too much. Granted, being blessed in Florida and not being 4 minutes away from the office, so not a whole lot of change in me. So there wasn't a lot of reflection that I have. But to me, understanding that someone is in a mind shift change, looking at their life through a different lens, that is always interesting to me, because it's just boom. It's like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else.
I'm a super optimistic person, and when COVID happened, like I had a 6-month baby at home, so I was like, this is great. I get to spend all this time with this awesome little baby. So I hit it in stride. I also said, all right, everyone's going to use this stay at home to get fat, and I got on a keto diet and dropped a bunch of weight. Like I was like, I fully embraced all the advantage this possibly could give me and maximize it. But hey, I've been back in the office. We've been in the office for a long time. I like being in the office.
Yeah, that change of state to me is important. I think throughout COVID, there was one day I think I ended up working at home because I just felt, I was a little bit of nausea. Got a test. It turned out to be nothing. Where they touched my brain, by the way, and I heard they're not testing like that anymore. But I think we're going to continue to see this swing, because even right now, what's some stat that you just read earlier when we were?
I just saw an article that said 100 million Americans are not participating in the labor force.
Which I completely disagree with. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people that aren't, I guess, probably not participating in the 9-to-5 economy, right? They have some other income or some other way, but you wouldn't consider them on unemployment.
Right. Yeah. Somebody that's maybe like a yoga teacher and they do that on the side, or maybe somebody that's like tutoring kids. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because I was just thinking, like, I don't know really anybody that doesn't have a job right now or a gig, right? I know some people that you would look at and say, like, they don't have a job, but they definitely have a gig and they have something that they're doing
Sure.
for income.
But to Ingbar's point, like about being specifically in this industry of Martech, I mean, do I feel blessed that we picked, like, I almost feel I lucked out so much in life. I don't know whether you want to call it luck or opportunity, whatever, but I work in an industry that you can do anywhere. You don't have to be anywhere to do it. It's all online. There's almost zero regulation. There's zero certification. You have to, you can literally, this is the most free industry and job in the world.
And do you think you luck into that, or all of those things led you to that?
I mean, I wasn't consciously looking for the freest, most openest industry. It just happened.
Yeah, which
I
is
was just a computer programmer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I think starting a digital agency, a lot of the things that you said, I don't know whether those were conscious, but it seemed like, yeah, this is something I can totally do. I already have experience doing it, so there's not that many things in the way. I'm wondering, is that, yeah, not necessarily conscious, but yeah, that's why there's no barriers to enter, which is a terrible thing too.
Pro and con.
Yeah. Just because it's like, hey, I remember one of the biggest things we'd go up against is somebody saying, my nephew likes websites. Like, dude, yeah, he's also taking bong rips in between your phone calls, right? So yeah,
Right.
we're professionals here. There's a vast difference.
If this industry was a video game, the independent contractor is like the level 1 boss. You have to beat that guy, and then it's like on to the next one, because that was like early year, 0 through 3. That's the person we were going up against, which is why our hourly rate was so low, which is what, it's like just going through, looking back the last 12 years of just the leveling up. And that's, I wish more people would think of life like that, because so many people want level 20, in year 2. And it's like, it's not how it goes. You got to build up. You got to, like you always used to say, you have to credential yourself. You can only credential yourself with successes, past successes, and you move up and you level up. And now we're, our evil bosses that we're slaying are big solutions for bigger brands, and it's a lot of fun. But we would have never got here if we didn't do the other ones.
No, I agree, and I think that trading up is important, and a lot of people don't look at it that way. So I always have a big conflict, right? I love getting a deal. I don't know if that's the Greek in me or whatnot, where it's just like, oh, this is a great deal. But on the flip side of that, it's the person that's giving away something for too cheap, right? So I'll run into people and like we'll talk about their billable hour, and I'm not even getting the deal from them. Like, oh yeah, we bill at like $60 something an hour, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, how are you getting by? Like, you're stealing from yourself. But they have that naivete, that false confidence. Like they think they know something that I don't. And it's like, look, I got 15 years of doing it, this way. And granted, the first few were doing it exactly like you did. And some people, they can't get that click. So I'm like, okay, all right, well, I guess I'm getting a deal today. I've literally talked people out like, are you sure? Like, this doesn't make sense. And they just, no, that's the price that they sell it at. So it's like being part capitalist, wanting that great deal. But on the flip side, feeling bad for them just being a consultant to businesses and realizing like, okay, all right.
But there's also a balance, because, for example, my stylist, hair barber, whatever you want to call it.
You go to a stylist?
I give her a huge tip, and it's like, she's like, what? And I'm like, once you find somebody that you rely on, and this is true in business, and you might have to overpay to keep them there. Because if I'm not helping her make a living, then she might say, oh, I'm going to go take another job, somewhere else, because this haircutting thing's not working out. Now
exactly.
I have to go find another person to do this. And, stylists, barbers, they're like, it's hard to find a good one that knows how to cut your hair how you like it consistently. Now, everyone can do it every other time, but when you get older and you're in a higher position, you need consistency in your haircut.
I completely agree. I tip 50% on my haircuts, And the other thing is, I go to a barber though. He's not a stylist. And if I can't find my guy, I just have somebody else. Like we'll cut it in. Nobody else is allowed to touch the top.
Right.
With that guy. But you're absolutely right, and I think it's a great point talking about pricing. And then we'll bring this all the way back. There's the difference between a Whoop band that I wear and an Aura ring, right? So I've got into this debate with others. They say the Aura ring's a one-time purchase. It's like $300-$400. The Whoop band is anywhere from $30 per month to like $18 or $12. I don't know where that falls, but it's ongoing. You technically don't own the product; you buy the service. Right. One part of you says, hey, right, but it is a service, whether you're buying the Aura Ring or the Whoop. So I'm investing in this technology based on the future for the results that I'm getting now as well as in the future, because the other business model is shit. They're not going to last. There's no way. The guy or gal that's getting the $30 a month, they're going to crush that other technology. The other one has to change. It's just the logic of it. And how am I going to bring this back? The 100 million people that need jobs. Inbar now works for a company that does training for companies all over the world. So the Great Resignation led her to something that will help solve the problem that we're talking about today. So, but without any further ado, please welcome Inbar Yagur. Thank you so much. Hi, Inbar. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, John. Happy to be here. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Good to see you. So what I'd like to do is start with your climb. How did you get here?
I actually have a really weird kind of story. So basically from the time I was 12, I had it in my head that I wanted to be a film director. To the point where I was born in Israel, grew up in the States, went back to Israel, and basically my entire mission throughout high school in Israel was, I'm going to go to film school. I need to go to film school, and I want to go to film school in the States, right? So I actually ended up living back in the US for almost 8 years and doing a bachelor's and a master's in film. So I got a bachelor's from Temple University in Film and Media Arts, and then a Master of Fine Arts from the American Film Institute Conservatory in film directing, of all things. So it was kind of weird because this is I'm going to give away my age a little bit, right? But I graduated AFI at early 2007, and this was YouTube was just like a mini thing. There were no like independent creators. It was all really, really new. Digital was new, so it was still sort of like the old school model of film production. And so I was one of there were 28 people in my directing class. I was one of 4 women. And I mean, to this day, I mean, there's a problem with women in the film industry, right? It's gotten a little better, but not really. So basically, having been in LA and kind of feeling the vibe for like 3 years, I'm like, okay, fine. I think I'm going to go back to Israel because there I can actually make movies. And then I promptly decided I don't want to make movies anymore. So yeah, basically about a year or two back in living in Israel, I just realized I wasn't cut out for the business. I think to direct, you need to be a megalomaniac. You need to have thick skin, and I don't have either of those things. So basically, yeah. So basically, somewhere around I would say a 2010, 2011, I was kind of done. And found my way into content marketing. Obviously, as a person who I was professionally trained as a writer, professionally trained as a filmmaker. To this day, I can edit video and write screenplays, but I can also write other stuff. So since I was already trained in that, it was kind of a really natural flow to go into content marketing. And so that's kind of what I did. So I was a freelancer for about 3 years while I was trying to, I'm just going to be really open about this, while I was trying to make a baby. I was basically freelancing the entire time, in parallel, created a lot of video, a lot of marketing content, did a lot of like website optimization kind of stuff, because having been in Israel, I have a really unique thing, which is I'm a native English speaker. And being a native English speaker is really in high demand here. And so I really got to see, around 2010 is right when like the startup nation was coming in. Israel has got the highest amount of unicorns per capita in the world for tech unicorns. I mean,
oh wow,
it's don't hold me to that. I know it's definitely higher than everywhere, maybe the
Holding you to it.
US.
Holding you to
Yeah.
it.
But we've got a buttload of unicorns, of tech unicorns. That's the bottom line. And so this was just as that kind of stuff was starting to come up, like founding of Payoneer, of Taboola, and all these other guys. I wasn't yet in any of those. I was helping a bunch of other startups kind of get their like cosmetics together to start selling into the United States. And then, speaking of Taboola, I joined Taboola. So I started there as a freelancer. Finally had a baby, which freed me up a little bit to actually work. And so I spent about 4.5 years at Taboola. For anybody who doesn't know, Taboola is like, when you go onto publisher's website, you scroll down to the bottom of the article, you see you may like or more from the web, that kind of thing. You see like a content recommendation feed.
Competitor to Outbrain.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Taboola did. And at the time, both Outbrain and Taboola were super new. Nobody kind of understand, like they knew they had this real estate at the end of articles. They didn't know what to do with it. Like there was no best practices. Nobody knew how to, because a lot of that is monetizing pages, right? So nobody kind of knew how to advertise in Taboola widgets. And so most of my time at Taboola was basically spent working with customers, the product team, and the commercial team, figuring out what to put in those widgets. So I'm really proud to say that any best practices you see for native advertising these days, I had a hand in writing.
So are you responsible for like the most, I would say, not obscene, but like goofy looking image to slap?
No, the complete opposite of it, actually.
Okay.
I was the biggest advocate for quality, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of, so let's just be, I hope this doesn't get salesy. There are a lot of competitors. There's a lot of lookalikes to what Taboola and Outbrain do. And a lot of that can be trash, right?
Okay.
And, even some Taboola stuff does not look great, but no, what I did was work with really big brands, like Fortune 500 companies, direct to consumer companies that were coming up, really, really huge brands, and helped them build out their content discovery strategy, and then educated the market on it. So we didn't know it was called product marketing at the time, but it's product marketing. I learned I figured out how best to use the product, and then I educated the market on how best to use the product. There was a lot of talk about maintaining quality, and my work was 100% with the big brands and the up and coming kind of direct to consumer guys. So I learned a lot there. I got to travel the world. I lectured. Like I said, I figured out how to do stuff there. Like I can give me 15 minutes. I can talk you through how to build a really good performance marketing campaign on Taboola. Right? Still to this day. So from there, I kind of went on into marketing leadership roles. I was VP marketing at a couple of ad tech marketing technology companies. The last one I was VP marketing at was a company called Anyword. They recently transitioned, kind of pivoted the product to a product that does copywriting with the help of AI. Uses natural language generation. Really cool product, but like a lot of people, I mean, I don't know if you've talked about the Great Resignation on this yet, but there's a whole thing that happened over the summer where people just kind of stopped and looked back and like, okay, wait, is this where I really want to be? And so a lot of people changed jobs, quit their jobs, started looking for something new. If during COVID they were really like feeling like I need to stay put, it's like obviously we're not past COVID yet. but
I'd love to pause there for a second and look at that. So like what during COVID made you look differently? Just expand on that. Was it because you were cooped up? Like what made you reflect differently and where you were at that time?
So here's the thing. During COVID, like at the height of the crisis, pre-vaccine, before we were like starting to see our way out, it was like stay put. And that I think is for everybody. And I was also finding everything really challenging. And, it was a new market to go into, and everything was cool, and learning, bringing something to market from scratch. But here's the second that things started opening up and the world started to see what it means to live in this pandemic reality, right? People didn't get back to normal, but they got back to, I hate to say this, God, this is so cliche. They got back to a new normal, right? And I think for me, there's a couple of things that happened. So pre-COVID, I traveled a lot, like a lot. Especially during my time at Taboola, but afterwards as well. On average, I'd be out of the country, like I'd be in the States or in the UK or in Asia in some far off places, 5-6 times a year. One year I actually traveled 10 times. I love it, but all of a sudden I was grounded. Like I'm flying for the first time in a few days to Content Marketing World. It's going to be my first time on a flight since November of 2019.
Wow.
Yeah. And so being a person who was used to traveling and meeting customers and being face to face and lecturing, because I love to lecture and at conferences and stuff, all of a sudden I was grounded, and it made me just kind of stop and take a breath, and it made me connect to my immediate community a lot more.
So if I was to look at this, so you didn't like your job in some respects without the travel. Like that was a big important piece to you, and you.
I mean, yes and no. I think what the travel did is it gave me. I hate marketing in a vacuum. Okay, so what travel meant for me is not the travel. That was nice. It meant being face to face with customers and prospects, and it meant talking to people, and it meant thought leadership and lectures. Like that's the stuff I loved. But because everything was grounded and closed, all of that stopped. Right. So yeah, travel is like the physical thing that stopped, but the result of that is that all that other stuff stopped. All like the customer one-on-one time, all of the conferences and meeting people and all the lecturing, all of that kind of stopped, and everything was brought into the house. Right. Now, having 2 kids at home for a big part of this, and working full time in a really high pressure. I mean, that the VP marketing job at AnyWord was unbelievably high pressure. There was a price to that, right? So I was seeing my kids experience me working in a way that was very different than what they had experienced when I was in the office, right? So I'll give you an example. I have a 4.5-year-old, right? So when COVID hit, he was still like, he wasn't in preschool. He was, how old was he? I think he was 3 years old. Yeah, he was 3 years old. His 3rd birthday was literally like, the party was 3 days before lockdown was initiated in Israel. So my son, who is now 4.5, does not remember a world pre-COVID. And this crazy thing happened to me with him the other day. He's like, Mommy, when COVID ends, are you going to continue to work? And I'm like, what do you mean am I going to continue to work? I always work. And he said, and it turns out what I understood from that question and kind of digging into that was that he sees work as something I do at home in front of the computer, and makes me not be attached to him as much, like makes me not connect to him while I'm on the computer, head into my laptop like I'm doing right now. He's here and he's seeing that. And so he's experiencing my work in a very different way than, say, my daughter, who's much older than him and knows that work happens usually in an office.
Right. So my understanding of what you're saying is like, you're there, but you have to ignore him in some respects. And that's what he's seeing, rather than when you would normally be around, he would get most of your attention.
Precisely. It completely transformed the relationship with my kids. And on top of that, there's another layer of it is we started to be really dependent on our immediate neighborhood, right? Because, Israel had like fits and starts in terms of going back to school. And, when there were like, they're very like strict about quarantining when somebody is in the presence of somebody who's tested positive. There's all of these things that happen that just as a result of my daughter being in a classroom, all of a sudden I have to, I'm connecting to the parents of the other kids much more than I was before, and doing much more, because you kind of have to, because I'm here. Like, everything I'm doing is at home. My entire life is all of a sudden this one big ball of mess, right?
Yeah.
And so it really made me rethink things. First of all, I was overworked. Just going to be honest. I was overworked and burnt out, completely burnt out. It was showing in that I was home, but not with my kids at all. And after having spent close to a decade in marketing technology and ad technology, I was kind of just over it. Like, one of the things that I think has happened in the last year or so is that, Facebook has kind of shown how problematic it is. I mean, it's always been problematic, right?
Mhm.
But it is really the amount of polarization that's happening as a result of algorithms that are showing people their own little communication bubbles, right?
Like the most salacious, juiciest stuff floats to the top,
Yeah,
and then it creates this echo chamber where everybody's like,
exactly.
yeah.
Right. And like, let's just be honest, social media is responsible for that. And my job was to get people to teach people how to advertise on social media. That was my last, like, at Anyword. Before that, it wasn't social media, but my time at Anyword, it was like, hey, okay, this is how you advertise on social media. Now, I'm a marketer. I have to give Facebook money, but do I have to continue to, like, I started feeling uncomfortable with it. I started feeling uncomfortable
So
with
it was going against your values, what you were doing. Okay.
Yeah. It just wasn't, I wasn't feeling like I was helping anybody. I wasn't feeling like I was doing something to make the world better. And I don't have any illusions, right? Like, there's like, you don't, it's rare that you get to make the world better in your job, right? But this was like, it just started to feel wrong. And and there's only so many ways you can say increase your conversion rate, right?
Hmm.
And having said that, for 10 years of my career, I was kind of done. And so, when I took a step back and said, okay, I think I'm ready, I'm burned out, I don't believe in this mission right now. And by the way, this is not to say anything bad about Anyword. It's a great company. The product is great. It's a great company. But for me, I was just not, like, I wasn't feeling the passion of it. I wasn't feeling the drive, because I had this problem.
Just didn't
And
work for you anymore.
it just didn't work for me anymore. And it was for the first time in my career, I stopped and said, okay, hold on. I need to leave marketing technology. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm good at what I do. I know Martech really well, but I know marketing really well. And so I want to market something that I can really get behind, something that is not marketing technology, but that I can believe in and I can see the value in. And so I did this thing. I was looking, like, really low key. I wasn't like, I didn't resign. I was just kind of talking to, like, really specific headhunters. And there were a whole lot of jobs that I said I didn't even apply to. I said no, right? I saw a product. I was like, what does this product do? Can I get behind this product? Is this product something that will give value to people, or is it a widget that does a thing?
So you were really going all in and aligning your values and, your purpose, whatever that may be, but you wanted to get behind something you believe in.
Yeah, and while I was doing it, I don't think I was that aware of it. Only now, in hindsight, do I realize that was what was happening. So I would get a job offer, like, a headhunter would approach me about cybersecurity. I'm like, I don't care about cybersecurity, or a platform that reads blah blah using AI, or that does cloud development and whatever. Like, and I was just like, no, this is not. Like, yeah, okay, cool product, but
So you'd see it like, this just doesn't feel right. On to the next one.
right. Yeah, it just doesn't feel right. And so I said I didn't apply to way more jobs than what I applied for. Right. And at the end of the day, I ended up with 2 companies with an offer in hand, of companies I truly believed in, and felt really good about, and felt good energy. And I felt like, okay, these are companies that actually do good things. And then lo and behold, I found my way to being the VP marketing at Growth Space, which is where I am now. And I'll tell you, like, just on like we can talk about this, or we don't need to get good in depth on this, but what Growth Space does is it actually enables employee growth and development for big companies through one-on-one mentoring, coaching, and training. So if way back, right, if a company wanted to bring one-on-one training or mentoring or coaching to somebody, that was usually something that was only really for like the C-suite and VP levels, because it's a really manual process. Like, you got to find the right coach, you got to find the right mentor, you got to understand what, and then you've got resources like, are they good? Are they bad? How much money is it going to cost? So imagine, if you're a learning and development manager at a big company, you can't do that for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you do it for C-suite and VPs. Growth Space does it for everybody. So we allow learning and development managers to really build and scale up one-on-one mentoring, coaching, training, and we do it in a way that is tied to business results, so it's not just money going into a vacuum, and really gives value to employees. And I love it because I think, we talked about the Great Resignation, right? We talked about how COVID made people kind of rethink their priorities. People are looking, people leave jobs, right? For a couple of reasons. They leave jobs maybe because they don't like their boss.
Mm-hmm.
They leave jobs because they're not getting paid enough money and they're not going to get more money. And they leave jobs because they're not feeling like they're growing professionally,
Mm-hmm.
right? 9 times out of 10, when I left a job, is because I left Taboola. I loved Taboola. I was at Taboola for 4.5 years, but I left Taboola when I realized that I didn't have any place to grow there. Like, there wasn't, that was kind of, okay, I think I've gotten the most from this company that I can.
Did they have a training curriculum or anything to move you forward?
So funny enough, Taboola was one of Growth Space's first customers. Way back, like a while back.
Yeah.
At the time they didn't. At the time they didn't. They didn't have anything. I mean, I think they did do learning and development a little bit, but and I got a couple like management training things, but I wasn't senior enough to really get anything big. There also wasn't really a path for me in terms of like, what would be my next title if I got a promotion. So it was a combination of things, but it's really funny. Like, Taboola is actually literally like one of the first customers for Growth Space.
Is Growth Space only focused though on like the Martech space, or can
not at all
any? Is it like literally any, or is it like sector focused?
Literally any. So we've got Johnson and Johnson and Applied Materials, and we've got tech companies like Gainsight and Checkpoint, of course, Taboola, SimilarWeb, Monday.com, Ernst & Young. There's a bunch.
These are all
of
huge labels,
yeah.
right? Are there small companies too that you work with?
Yes. So we do like, our minimum is about 50 learning program, like 50 growth sprints, right? We work in, like, every employee gets a growth sprint. They get matched with a coach, mentor, trainer. They have 5 sessions to work on a problem, and so usually, like, the smallest companies we work with usually have about 100 to 150 employees, but the biggest companies we work with, we're talking tens of thousands. So we work because this is the beauty of what we do. We're virtual, tech focused, one-on-one, and so L&D managers can do this at scale now, and that's what's really powerful. Because think about it this way, John. So 20 years ago, when the internet was born, right? Marketing didn't know digital, right? Marketing needed to literally transform and understand that they need data, they need KPIs, they need measurement, and that is the only way they're going to actually be successful in a digital world, right? And it took a while, but these days marketing is on a lot of levels more science than art, right? So learning and development is about where marketing was about 15 years ago. There's no data, there's no technology, there's nothing. And so that's what makes this kind of special, because we're taking technology methodologies, right, of measurement and matching and algorithm, and bringing it into this space that was very low tech for a really long time.
No, I think that's fascinating, especially if you're lucky enough to get in the infancy of it. So, all right, so what are these companies training their people to do? I know what I would want, as an agency owner, but yeah, I'm just interested. Like, what do these sprints look like for, like, what are they learning?
So I want to make the differentiation, right? Because there's training programs that companies do that like are internal, or when a person first joins the company to learn certain skills.
And yeah,
What
I
we
literally
do-
just picture them locking the person in that room, playing that video from the 80s. Everything is
Exactly.
dated. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look
So
at that
that
as
is
more of an orientation, right?
right. So that's not what we do. We
Okay.
do actual personal growth. So let's say, I'll give you an example. So we can work on soft skills, we can work on hard skills. So I'm a VP marketing. Let's say I don't know, but let's say I hire a marketing manager who's great at everything, but doesn't know how to scale paid campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want them to learn specifically how to scale paid campaigns in terms of not just like technically how to do it, but how to like manage that, how to bring
Mm-hmm.
that into their level of responsibility and ownership. I can go into the growth space platform and write, paid campaign scale management, and they will find me a VP marketing somewhere, or a head of demand generation, or somebody who's one of our mentors, and they would match that person with that challenge. Let's say the company's got a QA team lead who is terrible at working cross-functionally, or is terrible at communicating to management.
Mm-hmm.
That's a soft skill, right? That's something that's more coach than mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we have that too. So you can say, okay, I want this person to work on their external communication skills, and you find a coach. Let's say you're in R&D, so you find a coach that is specialized in R&D and communication skills, and you match with that person, right? And then they go in and they say, okay, this is what we're going to work on now. 5 sessions. What are we going to do in these 5 sessions to make you better at managing up?
And you'll do 1-to-1 like that? Or is that part of that 50?
It's 1-to-1. So every one of these programs is personalized, right?
That sounds super expensive.
Doesn't it though? But it's actually really not.
Okay.
That's what's cool about this, right? So here's the difference between there are coaching platforms. We're not those, right? Coaching platforms, you can go in, you can pay however much money for like this all you can eat kind of smorgasbord of like coaches that'll, talk to you and motivate you and help you with stuff, right? But that's not and that can get expensive, because it's like, we're going to do 9 months of this, we're going to do 6 months of this. The beauty here is that we're doing a really focused sprint. These people are coming in, they're doing 5 sessions, at max 7, but usually it's 5. It's 10 weeks. That's it. 1 hour each session. And you're working on something really focused and specific. And so you get to the end of it, you can say, hey, I improved here. Hey, I didn't improve here. And the beauty is, right, so if an L&D person would come to their CEO, in general, like, I just spent, $3 million on learning and development in the company. Okay, great. CEO is going to ask, so what did you get out of it? L&D person's going to go, I don't know.
Right.
like they might have a little bit of data, but they're not going to really know, right? If you do it in these focused, like goal-oriented ways, the L&D person can come in and say, oh yeah, we got 50 employees that all did these 5 sessions, these 5 session sprints, and 80% of their managers reported an improvement in the skills they were working on, and 92% of these employees reported that they are more likely to stay in the organization. By the way, on average, and hopefully I'm not getting too salesy here, but employees who go through growth space, about 97% of them said that the experience made them more likely to stay at the company.
All right, that makes it a stickier employee.
Yeah, it makes it, and so all of a sudden, here's some concrete numbers.
Yeah.
Here's something I can get behind. And so, learning and development has always been expensive, right? We're affordable, but and part of that is because of this model that is really easy to prove ROI on.
So I know tons of people working over the years that learned something, and then we go back to it, and then it's like, dude, you learned all this stuff. Like, where did that knowledge go? So is there some type of like check-in or anything, or is that onus on the company to do that?
So we ask employees who go through the process, we check in on them, obviously at the beginning to define their goals, at the halfway point and at the end, right? And another thing that's unique is that we bring in the manager in this. So a lot of times employee development doesn't actually bring in the direct manager. It's between HR and the employee. This loops in the manager. So the manager can actually say, this was achieved, this wasn't achieved. And so that's unique. And that's kind of where, at the end of it, the manager can say, yeah, okay, they're doing this now, or they're not doing this now.
Yeah.
Right? We won't check on it a year from now. That's up to the company. But immediately at the end, then yes, there is measurement there that we do.
So you've been at this company how long now?
I'm about to. It's wow. It's like 8 weeks.
8 weeks. All right. Well, you're pretty well versed in this.
Listen, it's first of all, it's really it's a very straightforward company. Yeah, it's not. I don't have to describe a gazillion things. Like, this is what we do. We do one-on-one personalized growth. That's what we do. I've kind of started, like, I had my head in a little bit before I started initially, because they were already in the middle of a rebrand.
But this is interesting though. So you dove in. So like, what does a VP do in their first 8-ish weeks? Granted, you probably did some pre-gaming, but like, what did it look like?
So this was crazy because I'm starting from scratch, right? The company's been around. We just raised $15 million from Vertex Ventures and Microsoft's M12 venture arm.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And there was no marketing. This was done because the product is good. Like, I'm just gonna, like, all of these customers that came in without marketing. So I'm coming in and building marketing from scratch, which is like, it can be super overwhelming. But I think, and I think this is what's kind of cool about,
like, do you hire an agency? Like,
so there was an agency that the CEO was already working with to do a couple things, and they're using like an SDR company that's outsourced, and they were already in the middle of a rebrand, much needed, which is gorgeous. And so they had this kind of stuff kind of happening with contractors. And my focus was, okay, all this stuff is kind of ad hoc. Let's first start by measuring and getting the infrastructure right. So that's where you start. What am I missing? Okay, if I want to start bringing in traffic tomorrow, and it doesn't matter where I'm going to bring it in. If I want to start bringing in traffic tomorrow, how do I want to deal with this traffic? What's going to be done with this traffic? And so the first thing I did was map that out, right? So a visitor comes in, they're either going to come in and bounce, or they're going to come in and leave their information. Okay. Or there's a third option. They're already an account that we're working on, and they're going to come in to the site. I need to be able to know all of those things. Okay. So a visitor comes in and bounces. Okay, fine. There's nothing much I can do there except retargeting and, hope that next time they do more and just increase my branding and my brand awareness. Visitor comes in and leaves their information. How am I dealing with that? Where is that information being captured? How am I communicating with the person once that information is captured? How am I handing that off to sales? Just building that machine. I'm still not done, by the way. Like, we implemented marketing automation now. I've got HubSpot doing lead capture and email nurturing, but we haven't synced up our CRM yet. There's a lot of stuff that's like still in process, but it's a lot about just, okay, if I don't know what to do with the traffic that comes into my site, I don't want to bring in traffic.
Right.
That's money.
You're smart. You took a picture of the landscape and tried to get a better understanding rather than just diving right in and just, throwing stuff around.
I mean, listen, there's an outside company that's building leads and helping our sales team fill up their pipeline. I want to be the primary person who fills up the sales pipeline. In order to do that, I need to know how to handle people who come on site. So first things first, how do I handle them? Second thing, how do I communicate to them? Third thing, what do I communicate to them? But the what for me, I'm only now getting into the what, because I'm not going to, there's a couple of things I believe in just from a marketing standpoint. I believe in consistency. So I don't want to, if I post on social media, I'm not going to post on social media once every 3 weeks. I'm going to commit to posting on social media twice a week. And that post is going to happen Mondays and Thursdays at this time. And it's going to be on these 3 channels. I have a newsletter. I'm not going to randomly send out a newsletter whenever I have something new to say. No, I'm going to make sure I have content to fill that newsletter, and that newsletter is going to be in people's inboxes every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And this is what's going to be in that newsletter. And it's for me, if you like, I'm not against trying stuff. There's always should be experimenting. There should always be, like Seth Godin said, there should always be purple cows, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to always do something interesting. But the pipeline is built with a lot of boring machinations.
Systems.
Right?
Flawlessly executing the systems.
Exactly. And so for me, that's, especially when you're looking at, if you're doing mid-market enterprise sales, you're looking at a sales cycle that can be anywhere between a month and 6 months, right? Maybe the average is about 3. So you need to talk to these people all the time. You need to be at top of mind, and you need to be consistent. If you forget people in your inbox the minute that you close the email or delete it or read it, the way to stay there is if you've got a strong brand, a strong message, and you're consistently there. Hey, it's Tuesday at 5 p.m. Oh, I saw Growth Space send me something last Tuesday too. It was kind of interesting. Okay. And slowly.
How are you developing? How are you developing that content? Like, what does that look like? What does your process look like so somebody is actually engaging with it?
Right. So there's a couple things. Right now I'm still kind of finding the cadence. I'm actually hiring a content manager. Don't have somebody yet, but I'm bringing in somebody who will really pull together the full cadence and strategy. Right now, I'm starting really practical. So first of all, we had this funding announcement, and so there was a lot about telling the story around the funding announcement. There's a lot of just, there's still a conversation about how remote and hybrid work kind of, plays into employee retention and all of that. So kind of talking about that. And until I have somebody in place who can build a really full strategy, because I'm going to be honest, I don't have time yet. So I'm bringing in somebody who will do it for me because I just can't, there's too many other moving parts, which is weird because I'm a content person. Right. So like, it makes it kind of crazy because like I want to sit down and build a content strategy from scratch. I don't have time to. So I'm doing what I can to maintain it until somebody comes in and owns that. Right. So
I think that's super professional, because I think somebody that isn't would just jump in and they would try to own that, and then they would relent on the things that they're supposed to really be doing, which is, if you're at VP CMO level, you need to be at that really high level, looking down in, rather than literally doing the systems yourself.
Exactly. And by the way, that was a really hard switch for me. It was really hard. I had to learn that the hard way. I'm just gonna be honest. I had to learn it by being burnt out and understanding that I can't do everything. And I think that, like, I don't know who said, somebody smart once said that a good manager trains their replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I realized, especially this is the first hire I'm bringing in, I need somebody who will do the job as good as I know I will do the job, but I can't do that job. I've got a dozen other things I've got to do. And so for now, what I'm doing is just really building blocks. I've got an SEO agency. I sit down with them every week. They are amazing. She gives me, we decide what our strategy is, what target keywords, and then, and this is important, we find how we can create really valuable content around those. So I hate creating junk content. Junk content is it's terrible, and it has no place. Like, it has no place in my marketing strategy. I get that people do like volumes upon volumes of posts, and I can't. I can't.
How do you quantify what valuable content is?
You need to be able. It needs to be engaging. Let's start there. It needs to be readable. Right, because this is another issue with B2B marketing in general, is people tend to like treat it like college textbooks, which I think is just terrible, because you're marketing to people. Like 99.9% of B2B audiences are people.
Yeah, use some contractions.
Yeah, right. So they're going to be bored. They're going to be interested, and you need to kind of play into that. And here's my big belief in terms of content. When you're trying to position yourself as a thought leader in your space, the best way you could possibly do that is by making your persona feel smart and look smart. So if I can give my audience something that they can then take and either use in their day-to-day to make them better at their jobs, or share with their friends and colleagues, so, and so they can themselves be knowledgeable in their area of expertise, I've done my job. Because at that point they're with me because I'm giving them value.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, I talk about the company and I talk about what the company does, but I'm much more interested in talking about what the company knows. So let me give you an example of something I did at Anyword.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
So COVID, everything shut down. At the time, the company was called Kiwi. It was before the rebrand. And a lot of what we were doing was Facebook traffic for publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing to dry up when the lockdown started hitting was advertising dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just kind of went into their cocoon and just tried to figure out what to do. So what did we do? We started emailing them. We had no budget. We didn't know what to do. So we just started emailing them a lot, but not junk email. We did 3 emails a week. On Monday, it would be an email about the data, which is, at that case, is Facebook CPCs and CPMs. Like, how is the CPC and CPM trending today? On Wednesday, this was the big one. I would send out something that I called a deep dive, where I would take a thing, look at the data that's coming in around that thing, and share A, what the data says, and B, what you can do about it. So for example, Q2 e-commerce just exploded Q2 2020 because everybody was home. So numbers of e-commerce in Q2 were bigger than e-commerce in Q4 of 2019, which is crazy because Q2 is not a big, it's okay in terms of spend, but it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took that and I looked at the data and I figured it out. I was like, okay, e-commerce is exploding right now. And I showed the data that explained it. And I said, okay, so e-commerce is exploding right now. Here's what you, dear publisher, can do to capitalize on that and to help improve your business based on that. And I did that with everything. So, paid subscriptions to news outlets was increasing, and ad revenue was going down. And every time I would take something and just kind of take the data, tear it apart, put it back together. And it was a long email. It was long AF.
It's literally written from you. Like, this is Inbar's insights.
Yeah, it was written by me because I would write it. Right? First of all, I hate emails that come out of blah blah team. No, emails come from a person. There's a person writing that email. That person needs to be the one who's sending it. So yeah, it was Inbar from Kiwi at the time.
Yep.
And I would spend, I would say, about 2 days of my week, not the whole 2 days, but a very, very big chunk of 2 days. Monday and Tuesday were all about sending the deep dive on Wednesday. And it was crazy how, first of all, I got picked up in marketing blogs and news outlets. Marketing Land literally quoted me on one, at least 1 or 2 emails. I had people proactively sending me emails asking me to opt in. I got this forwarded from a colleague. Can you please add me to your mailing list? I had, and the first sales opportunities that came in, we had a very robust mailing list. Let me just say that I wasn't emailing no one. We had a very robust mailing list. The company's been around for 8 years. There's a lot of leads in that list.
Yeah.
The first sales opportunities that came in when the things started, kind of calming down, came in from those emails.
Good for you. And was this to the entire list, or was this just to? So this was customers, non-customers. Got it.
Customers, not customers. Anybody who we ever talked to at any point.
Yep.
This was, and so that was Wednesdays, and there was one more. Fridays, we do news roundup. Fridays was, this is what happened this week in publishing. Now, This is not something I would do today, right?
That's what I'm
Today,
saying. Like, was COVID the trigger? And you're like, okay,
yes,
guys, we got to double down. We got to kick some
yes.
ass. We need 3 newsletters. They got to be personal. We need solid insights.
Because but the reason was, and this wasn't just me, like I don't at all take credit for this idea. Okay, the reason that this worked is because everybody wanted to understand what the F was going on. Think about it. Everything is up in the air. Nobody knows anything. They're going to work, but they're like, what am I doing right now? Like, are people even looking at my ads? Are people even reading are they doing anything? And I had power because I saw, right? We saw what was going on a high level. And so I shared that with them, and they're like, oh, okay. Now, I think every single company needs to do this, right? Maybe not in like, we ended up, by the way, we phased out everything except, we actually ended up phasing out everything by December 2020. We were down to a weekly newsletter, right? Because there was no ROI in it anymore, right? Like, but the weekly newsletter was still super valuable. That's the thing; it kept on being valuable. So it wasn't 3 times a week, and it wasn't 1,000 words. It was pared down, but had the same information. It had insight, it had data, and it had high level, recommendations and actionable stuff.
It sounds like a sprint, though. Like, you can't continually do that, like, at that level.
At that level, you can't. But here's the thing. So there are things that you always are going to know, right? The way. Sorry. Let me take a step back. Okay, B2B marketing strategy. Especially if you're a SaaS product, but I think this is true for anybody who's doing B2B. You are marketing to a specific audience. Your single user only sees their world. You see the whole ecosystem, right? You see everyone. Everyone wants to know what everybody else is doing. Like, there's FOMO is FOMO is real. Everybody has it. They see their little world, and they're like, okay, I think I'm doing a good job, but am I really doing a good job? I don't know if I'm doing a good job. Well, what's everybody else doing? As the company who's talking to everybody else, you know what everybody else is doing. Yeah. At least in your domain, and you always know what everybody else is doing. So you can, quarterly, you can maybe leverage that as an ebook, but on an ongoing basis, your best friend is your data, right? So if you're manufacturing and shipping, you can look at how many,
Excuse me. Ooh.
It's okay, bless you.
Thanks.
If you're manufacturing and shipping, you can look at, how many, I don't know, let's say you're a fabric company. You can look at what average meters, what is the average size meters that medium-sized fabric stores order. Medium-sized fabric store would want to know that. That seems like maybe the most trivial thing, but if I'm a medium-sized fabric store, I want to know what kind of, what length of fabric all my competitors are getting. Right? If you're if you're a learning and development specialist, you want to know what other learning and development specialists are doing to help, grow their employee base, and what kind of reaction they're getting, and how they're orchestrating their programs. And, so that data is always there.
What investment do you say people should take with that data? Because everybody has that data, I believe, if they dig and they find it. But insofar as like allocation of like labor and time, like, what would you say this should be at least your minimum to start with to create something like kick-ass?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm an artist, right? I only discovered pivot tables in Excel. I only discovered them. I found them really, truly in the last couple of years. We started doing it Taboola. I actually helped build something called Taboola Trends. So if you go to trends.taboola.com, you go in and you can put in a keyword and see whether it's trending up or down in terms of CTR. So that's something my team started building back then.
Cool.
Right. Oh. And to this day, again, it's huge. But then I had a data scientist that helped me, and these days I don't. Like, these days I'm, it's me and the marketing team, and we're a bunch of frustrated artists selling stuff, and say, what do we do? So first of all, there is a learning curve here. You need somebody. If you're not a data oriented person, you need somebody to sit down with you and kind of explain it to you. If you're at a tech company, your best friend is, if you've got a data science team, then those are the people to sit with. If not, then product or R&D. They can be your best friends, and they love to teach. You always find a person who will be happy to share it with you. So the initial investment is just kind of figuring out what you have and how to measure it. Okay, so what are we as a company recording? Where are we recording it? How can I access it? And then what can I do with that? Right. So the investment starts with just that. So I'll give you an example. For me, I actually am finally now sitting down and opening up this world of data for me. Right. How come I could tell you that there's 90, I think 97% of employees feel like this increased their willingness to stay at their current job. I have that data now. I literally took all of the employees that went through a program with us. I looked at their ratings. I did some pivot tables, and I came up with that number. And I'm doing that right now. I'm sitting down with R&D and figuring out what do we actually capture. And then once you figure out what you capture, once you figure out how to get the data that you capture, then it's just a question of how useful is it and how often can you use it. If you're something that's long haul, the data may not change for months. And if the data doesn't change for months, okay, fine. So do an ebook once a year. That brings that in. If you're something that's much more fast paced, if you're stock options or whatever, like if you're in the stock market, that changes daily. So you need to deal with that differently. But then it's also easier data to kind of crunch.
Yeah, and I think as marketers, a lot of people don't create, they don't set up their a structure where saying like, hey, this is the thing that we want to say. And I'm not trying to say create biased BS information, but like, hey, we want to say that we have 100% customer satisfaction, or 95% of people decide to stay after using our product or service. But you have to put the measurements in place so you can actually do that, the surveys and things like that. And I think that's something that agencies, companies, so many people can get better at, just to figure out, all right, what is it that we eventually want to say? All right, well, okay, cool. These are the things that we got to do to be able to, hold our weight in water for that.
So I'll give you 2 things on that. 2 points on what you just said. So first of all, if you don't have access to own data, or you don't know what to do with what you've got at the company, surveys are amazing. If you've already got a mailing list that you can ask, then go to the mailing list. Build out not a too long survey, like 10 questions. Figure out, like, put yourself in your persona's shoes. What do they want to know? And then ask your mailing list that. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to share that information just so they can get everybody else's information, right? So right as things were coming, again, COVID as the example, as things were starting to calm down, we sent out a survey to our publishers. Hundreds and hundreds of publishers, when I was a Kiwi, hundreds and hundreds of publishers answered that survey, and we put out an ebook, The State of Publishing 2020. That was probably the most successful ebook I've done in terms of conversion from lead to sales opportunity.
How simple was your survey, though?
It was ridiculously simple.
Yeah, I think that's where everybody fails on the surveys. It's like, dude, somebody's not going to spend 15 minutes writing these long-winded responses.
So first of all, you need to also be smart about what you're like. First of all, it's about being smart about what you're asking. Okay, don't make up more questions to make up more questions. Think about, what information do I want to share? What does my persona want to know? And ask just that. Just that, right? Like, that's it. Nothing else. No bells and whistles. If you want to get really smart about it, you can take that, put that against the data that you have as a company, and kind of cross-reference and create a bunch of insights from that. There's a lot you can do. So I'll give you an example of something I did before Kiwi Anyword. I was a VP marketing at Trend Demon. They do content marketing, attribution, and personalization. I did a survey, and then I took that survey and I cross-referenced it with Trend Demon's analytics. So I saw that that only 30% of B2B marketers, according to the data that we had, actually had a standing weekly newsletter. And of those, most of that weekly newsletter helped convert into sales in the long haul. I did the survey, and people were kind of like, yeah, I don't have a newsletter program. Everybody who does have a newsletter program, it really helps them convert. So, okay, there's an opportunity here. Most of your competitors are not doing a weekly newsletter. You need to do a weekly newsletter because it's converting. It works, right? So it depends on the message, right? And so now with Growth Space, this is exactly where I'm at. I'm figuring out, okay, what data do I have access to? Okay, how can I use that not only to sell Growth Space? Yeah, it's great that people report, 90 something percent satisfaction with their coach and growth, and yes, that's going to be great for my sales collateral. What do my customers want to know?
Right.
My customers want to maybe know what are the most common soft skills that people ask to work on. Just an example. They might want to know what is the average seniority of a person who goes through one of these training programs. They might want to cross-reference that, right? Do I give this training program to my mid-managers or to my individual contributors? Well, let's see what other companies of my size are doing, right? And I'm not going to give away particular specific company data. The power comes in the fact that I see the big picture. I don't see one company, I see hundreds of companies.
Right. I love
Does that
that.
make sense?
It does, yeah. So I know we're almost coming at time here,
Okay.
and I want to ask a question. I love asking, and you can take it wherever you want to go. What have we not covered today that you believe the world should know?
That moms get a raw deal in tech. That's what I believe the world should do.
Okay. Why do moms get a raw deal? And
so listen, I'm gonna be right. I have so much stuff about content marketing. You can go, if you Google my name, you'll find articles on AI, copywriting, blah blah blah. Go to Content Marketing World, hear me lecture. What people don't talk about is the fact that mothers are the hardest working people in tech, and they get the least credit. Okay. I won't mention the name. There was a company that I joined at some point in my career. On my first day there, they said, you're the first mother here, because when we haven't hired mothers because they thought they wouldn't be available enough and they wouldn't give enough hours. And so we didn't want to give flexibility.
Was that in Israel or the States? Because that's super illegal to say in the United States.
So they said it. So listen, they said it after I was hired.
Yeah.
And it was, and I'm not going to say, but let's just say, it was an international company.
Got it.
So,
they should have known better.
And they didn't say it out of, like, they weren't bad people. They weren't bad people, but it was like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I once had a manager that I work US facing. I have my entire career. I live in Israel, but I basically work in the US, right?
Yeah.
And so that means, there's a 7-hour difference between here and Eastern time. And so I have, there are 2 hours that's in the middle of the US's day that I put my kids to bed.
Yeah.
So I block my calendar and it says kid bedtime every single day it comes out from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time. My calendar is blocked. If you want to talk to me after 2 p.m. Eastern time, I will hop on a call. That's 9 p.m. my time. I will hop on a call at 9 p.m. I'll hop on a call at 11. I'll hop on a call at midnight. Those 2 hours is when me and my husband, I'm not alone in this. I have an amazing husband. Those 2 hours are the hours where my husband and I are giving the kids food, putting them to bed, and also spending quality time with them. My husband and I put our kids to bed actively every single night. We sit down, we read a story, we play a game, we spend quality time. It's important to us. I actually had one of my managers ask me why I needed to put my kids to bed every night. Why I can't have my husband do it. And it was like, you're an exec. No.
That's a super personal question.
It's like the thing is, okay, and
Especially, what time is it there? So it's like 7 or 8 o'clock there, right? When
no, it's 5 p.m. now. It's 5
No,
p.m.
but what I'm saying, when you're putting your kids to bed.
Yeah, it's 8 p.m. 7, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Now, listen, here's the thing, okay? I work probably harder than any single 24-year-old dude Okay. Because I'm aware of the fact that there is time that needs to be given to my children.
Yeah.
I'm super sensitive to that. I feel the need to overcompensate. Most mothers overcompensate on that time that is given to their children. By the way, I'm not even going to go into dads who want to be active parents and the stigma that comes with it. My husband is an amazing dad. If he could be a house husband, if he could stay at home with the kids full time, he would do it. We need to be a two income household. He's amazing. There's a stigma around him getting kid time too, because men don't do that in tech, right? So tech is built on the backs of hardworking people who, how do I say this? Sorry, it was this big sentence and now I lost it. But it's built on this kind of foundation that the bro is the is what drives it. It's what makes the bro is who makes everything happen. The 25-year-old white dude who like doesn't have anything tying him down. But the truth is that the most successful companies don't have that. They have people who have families, who have lives, who feel the need to deliver at the same pace and hours that the 24-year-old bro does. Even though they're more experienced, they do the job better. They probably need less hours to do the same job 24-year-old bro does. But because there's no space for family, that gets lost. And it's especially hard on mothers. And there's a reason there are less women. There's so few women CEOs in tech. There's so few female executives in tech. And even the most progressive organization can fall into the trap of discounting mothers.
Would you say it's because the balance of being good at what it is that you're doing and being a good mother is a very tricky balance?
Of course, it's a tricky balance, but that's none of the workplace's business.
But I'm just saying, just in general, right? Because just energy. We only get so much energy, right? And then not everybody's built the same from a DNA level, from an energy perspective. Some people sleep 4 hours a night. Some of us need 11, right? So just at that point, like, what is it that you can give, and how much can you give before you're just drained and over and burnt out?
So you're always going to be drained and over and burnt out. I'm an executive at a high tech company. I'm always going to be drained and overworked and burnt out. But I do want to say, just for the record, growth space is so inclusive. I don't think there's a single 24-year-old bro in the bunch. Actually, it's one of the first work environments I've been in that I actually am bring down the average age rather than bring up the average age. I'm surrounded by parents. It's a whole new thing. This is because our CEO.
Did it have a little bro coder wearing a hoodie, sucking down Adderall and Mountain Dew stage?
No, not really.
Cool.
That's kind of because this is an HR company, and so they understand how things really are.
Yeah.
And so they practice what they preach, and I love that about them. But they're rare beasts, right? Like. So I'll say it this way. I can talk for like 3 hours about what it means to be a career mom. I know I'm different.
Well, how can a career mom be as balanced as they can and get as far ahead in their career as they want to get?
Work-life balance is a fallacy. It does not exist. Ever.
Oh, okay.
You're either going to put your family first, you're going to put your work first. At every point in your day, you're making a decision. One is always at the expense of the other. Always. And it is an illusion. It never happens. There's going to be weeks when your balance is with family. There's going to be weeks where your balance is with work. COVID threw the whole thing into disarray because now it's like, I don't even have a line between them.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I do, because I'm different. I get judged a lot because I'm a female executive. I'm surrounded by mothers who are way more hands-on than I am, who don't work part-time, their husbands are the primary breadwinners. For me, I actually make the majority of the salary in the house. And so I use that though to model for my children what it means that it is okay to be a woman and be careerist. It's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to love what you do and throw yourself into it. Because honestly, I would never be able to be a house like stay-at-home mom. Sorry, housewife, stay-at-home one. I would never be able to do that. I would lose my mind. I'm just not built for it.
Yeah,
I
it's in
love
your DNA.
yeah, I love my kids, but kids are boring. Like it's just, they are. Let's just be honest. They're boring. I find my children fascinating, but only my children. Only my children. I love, like, they're amazing. I love them, but I would lose my mind. I would lose my mind. And so what I do is I model. They see me stressed. I tell them why I'm stressed. Yeah, honey, I'm stressed today because the press release is coming out and it's going to talk about the company and I have a lot of work to do. Or I'm frustrated today because I actually share with my daughter. My daughter's 8. When I encounter chauvinism in the workplace, I share it with her.
Really? How old is she? She's 8 and wow.
8. Yep. I share it with her because I don't hide my feelings. If I'm upset, my kids see I'm upset.
Yeah, very authentic. I think I've got that from just knowing, which I appreciate. It's refreshing.
It's refreshing, and I know but listen, especially these, like, show your mess. Like, what is there? What do you have to lose at this point? We're living in utter insanity. Who are you trying to impress here, dude?
Right.
Like, show your mess. So yeah, when I encounter challenging situations at work, my daughter, if she sees me upset, I tell her about it because she should see it.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to me that my daughter does not. Whenever she experiences acts of chauvinism, she's surprised that they still exist. And that is awesome. And that tells me that I'm doing my job.
Yeah. Right on. All right.
Yeah.
So how can the world get a hold of you?
Well, I'm actually, I've got Twitter. I'm terrible at Twitter. I said to Twitter. I have an
How about
account.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, exactly. My LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I can't believe this. I'm ancient. TikTok scares the F out of me. The only time you see me on Twitter is when I'm in a content marketing world. Like, I'm just bad. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And happy to connect with people. And yeah, so there you have it.
All right. Well, Inbar, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, John. This was a pleasure.
Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.